Miss Angie. I'm here to read another story to you from the book, The Complete Fairy Tales and Stories of Hans Christian Andersen. Today, our story is called Pen and Inkstand. Now, long time ago, folks didn't have pens like this. They had a pen that did not have ink in it, and you had to dip it into a bottle of ink, and then you'd write, and then when you ran out, you'd dip it into another one. So there was a stand for that, and then you dip it into your ink, all right? I think that's important to know for this story. Okay, in a poet's study, somebody made a remark as he looked at the inkstand that was standing on the table. It's strange what can come out of that inkstand. I wonder what the next thing will be. Yes, it's strange. That it is, said the inkstand. It's unbelievable. That's what I've always said. The inkstand was speaking to the pen, and to everyone else on the table could hear it. It really is amazing what can come out of me. Almost incredible. I actually don't know myself what will come next when that person starts to dip me. One drop from me is enough for half a piece of paper, and what may not be on it then. I am something quite remarkable. All the works of this poet come from me. These living characters with whom people think they recognize, these deep emotions, the humor, the charming descriptions of nature. I don't understand those myself, but I don't know anything about nature. All of that is from me. From me have come out and still to come out. That host of lovely maidens, the brave knights. The fact is, I assure you, I don't know anything about them myself. You're right about that, said Pen. You have very few ideas and don't bother about thinking much at all. If you did take the trouble to think, you would understand that nothing comes out of you except liquid. You just supply me with the means of putting down on the paper what I have in me, and that's what I write with. It's the pen that does the writing. Nobody doubts that. And most people know as much about poetry as an old inkstand. You haven't had much experience, retorted the inkstand. You've hardly been in service a week, and already you're half worn out. Do you imagine you're the poet? Why, you're only the servant. I have a great many like you before you came. Some from the goose family, some from the English make. I'm familiar with both quill pens and steel pens. Yes, I've had a great many in my service, and I'll have many more when the man who goes through the motions for me comes to write down what he gets from me. And I'd be much interested in knowing what that will be, what the next thing he gets from me. Inkpot, cried the pen. Late in that evening, the poet came home. He'd been at a concert. He had heard splendid violinists and was quite thrilled with his marvelous performance. From his instrument, he had drawn a golden river of melody. Sometimes it sounded like a gentle murmur of rippling water drops, wonderful pearl-like tones. Sometimes like the chorus of twitching birds. Sometimes like a tempest tearing through the mighty forests of pine. The poet had fancied he'd heard his own heart weep, but in tones as sweet and as gentle as the voice of a woman. It seemed as if the music came not only from the strings of the violin, but from its sounding board, its pegs, its very bridge. It was amazing. The selection had been extremely difficult, but it had seemed as if the bow were wandering over the strings merely in play. The performance was so easy that an ignorant listener might have thought he could do it himself. The violins seemed to sound and the bow to play of their own accord, and one forgot the master who directed them, giving them life and a soul. Yes, the master was forgotten, but the poet remembered him. He repeated his name and wrote down his thoughts. How foolish it would be for the violin and the bow to boast of their achievements. Yet we human beings do it so often. Poets, artists, scientists, generals, we're all proud of ourselves, yet we are only instruments. We have nothing to be arrogant about. Yes, that's what the poet wrote down and titles his essay, The Master and His Instruments. That ought to hold you, madam, said the pen when the two of you were alone again. Did you hear him read aloud what I had written? Yes, I heard what I gave you to write, said the inkstand. It was meant for you and your conceit. It's strange that you can't tell when anyone is making fun of you. I gave you a pretty sharp cut there, surely. I must know my own satire. Inkpot, said the pen. Scrabble stick, said the inkstand. They were both satisfied with their answers, and it is a great comfort to feel that one has made a witty reply. One sleeps better afterwards, so they both went to sleep. But the poet didn't sleep. His thoughts rushed forth like the violin's tones, falling like pearls, sweeping on like the storm through the forest. He understood the sentiments of his own heart. He caught a ray of light from the everlasting Master. To him alone be the glory. The end. Bye, friends.